What is the real story behind how the Mafia membership books were reopened in 1976? Let's check it out. I'm James Gladwish and welcome to OC Shorts, bringing you detailed historical snapshots of the American Mafia and other organised crime. Feel free to subscribe if you like that sort of thing. Today, we're going to take a quick look at a landmark meeting in American Mafia history, where the 5 families of New York made the decision to induct new members. As is famously known, in the late 1950s, the New York Mafia decided to close the books for new members. The books for inducting new-made men would stay closed in New York for the best part of 2 decades, opening again in 1976. Mob boss Carlo Gambino is often stated as being one of the main driving forces in keeping the books closed. Some sources often erroneously state that it wasn't until Carlo Gambino passed away in October 1976 that the books were finally opened again. However, in reality, it was decided many months before Gambino's death to start inducting new members. Many informants stated to the FBI that it was in the first 2 months of 1976, January and February, that the books for Mafia membership were reopened. At the start of that year, Carlo Gambino called a meeting that was attended by representatives of the 5 New York families to discuss inducting new members. As one FBI file states, on 2/12/76, redacted name advised, during past 3 or 4 weeks, leadership of 5 New York LCN families convened by Carlo Gambino for purpose of discussion on opening the books for new LCN membership. However, the idea of inducting new members was not supported by all Mafia bosses. And at that meeting, Carlo Gambino was very much opposed to opening the books for membership. As an FBI file states, source states Gambino adamantly opposed new membership for fear of informant penetration, however was outvoted 4-1, and reluctantly agreed to go along with a proposal of 10 new members each for 5 families. Source speculated that if Gambino had been able to persuade one other LCN boss to oppose the proposal, he would have been in a position to delay or prevent implementation. As can be seen from the file, mob boss Carlo Gambino was outvoted by the other crime families, and a decision was made to reopen the books for membership. It is interesting to note that despite Carlo Gambino's alleged power on the commission, he still adhered to its democratic nature. An informant then furnishes the FBI with the following information regarding which mobsters were inducted into the Colombo crime family in their first wave of inductions in February 1976. The FBI file states, on 2/10/76, redacted name advised that the Colombo LCN family initiated 10 new members on the previous Thursday and Friday, February 5th and 6th. Alphonse Persico Consigliere sponsored redacted name, Anthony Scarpati, Thomas Shorty Spiro, and redacted name. Joe Brancato, captain, sponsored Carmine Tutti Franzese, nephew of Sonny Franzese. Redacted name, underboss, sponsored Salvatore Albanese. Joe Iacovelli, former boss, sponsored Salvatore Fusco and another unknown individual. Redacted name, sponsored an unknown individual. Source advised that all the above named individuals are now Goodfellows, members of LCN, and recognised as such by all families. As can be seen, there were some names that were redacted in the file, but thanks to the work of the researcher from the website LCN Bios, we are able to ascertain the full list of inductees and their sponsors into the Colombo crime family. The list of inductees is as follows: Salvatore Albanese, sponsored by Anthony Abademarco. Carmine Tutti Franzese, sponsored by Joseph Brancato. Salvatore Salibuso Fusco, sponsored by Joseph Iacovelli. Philip Fat Fungi Gambino, sponsored by Joseph Iacovelli. Joseph Joe Black Gorgoni, sponsored by Joseph Iacovelli. Gennaro Jerry Langella, sponsored by Alphonse Persico. Andrew Andy Mush Russo, sponsored by Alphonse Persico. Anthony Scappi Scarpati, sponsored by Alphonse Persico. Dominic Donny Soma, sponsored by Charles Panarella. And Thomas Shorty Spiro, sponsored by Alphonse Persico. Regarding the Genovese crime family, the informant told the FBI, source stated that he heard that the Genovese family had their initiation earlier in the week. Source was also told that if everything works out satisfactorily, each family will initiate 10 additional members within 6 months. An informant would also add, on 2/9/76, redacted name advised that over the weekend he was told that the LCN books had opened and that some new members were taken into the organisation. He related that on Friday afternoon, 2/6/76, he was told that redacted name, Funzi Tieri's redacted information, had been made during the week. He further related that Saturday afternoon, 2/7/76, redacted name and Tieri came to Little Italy together from Brooklyn, and they went to the Napoli restaurant, located on Hester and Mulberry Streets, New York City. Source continued that no party has been held as yet for the new members in LCN, but that a party will be held for new members in the near future. The redacted name of the Genovese crime family mobster in the file is believed to have been Johnny Mumbles Russo. Again, thanks to LCN bios, we have the first 5 inductees into the Genovese crime family in early 1976. They were as follows. Anthony DeVingo, sponsored by John Big Pussy Russo. John DiGilio, sponsored by Frank Funzi Tieri. TIno Fiumara. Venero Benny Eggs Mangano. And Johnny Mumbles Russo, sponsored by Frank Funzi Tieri. Regarding the Gambino crime family's new inductions in early 1976, the informant would state, source advised Gambinos have not made new membership as of 2/9/76 due to large number of candidates, but initiation imminent. From LCN bios, the identity of one of the Gambino mobsters who was inducted is believed to have been Frankie DeChico, who was sponsored by Jimmy Brown Filer. It is indicated that 9 other mobsters were also inducted. With regards to the Bonanno crime family, it is indicated that in the first wave of inductions in February 1976 were Anthony Bims Bonacci, James Jimmy Legs Episcopia, Alphonse Sonny Red Indelicato, and Dominic Sonny Black Napolitano. Interestingly, although the Bonanno crime family inducted many more mobsters throughout the remainder of the 1970s, in 1979 they were banned from inducting any new made men. This may well have been because the family was heavily involved in narcotics trafficking. There is less information about who was inducted in the first wave of Lucchese crime family inductions. But one of the Lucchese mobsters who became a made man in February 1976 was possibly Joseph Joey T. Brocchini. All of the 5 New York families continued to induct new members throughout the rest of the 1970s. There are of course theories about certain mobsters being inducted into New York crime families while the books were closed. We know that Nicholas Nicky Bianco was possibly inducted into the New England Patriarcha crime family in the 1960s and then transferred to the Colombo family. He would later move back to the Patriarcha family. We also believe that Carmine Persico's brother, Alphonse Persico, was inducted by the Buffalo family and then transferred to the Colombo family in this period as well. Sources also state that the likes of Lucchese mobster Anthony Casso, Gambino mobster Nino Gaggi, Colombo mobster Michael Franzese, and Genovese mobster Vincent Fish Cafaro were all inducted while the books were closed. However, there is little concrete evidence to support these claims. And with the likes of Michael Franzese and Vincent Cafaro, both of whom would later talk about their inductions, there is evidence to support that they were both mistaken about the dates of their inductions, and that they were both made after the books had been opened in 1976. I've covered this in previous videos. Interestingly, in March 1976, only a few weeks after the Mafia membership books had reopened, the New York Times ran an article stating that new members were now being made. Some highlights from this article are as follows. The decision to reopen the books indicates a decline in the influence of Carlo Gambino, boss of the biggest mafia family in the city, who opposed the move. It also signifies the emergence of Carmine Galante, the new boss of the mafia family of Joseph Bonanno, as a major power. Mr. Galante, who finished a 15-year term for narcotics last year, led the fight to persuade the commission to open the books. According to the officials, Mr. Galante argued that all mafia families were declining rapidly because new members were not being brought in to replace those who had died, and major moneymakers in the rackets were not being brought into the families. It is interesting to see that the article states that Carmine Galante was the boss of the Bonanno crime family, as we know that he never officially held that position. Although Joe Massino, former boss of the Bonanno crime family turned informant, would state that when he was inducted, for all intents and purposes, Carmine Galante was treated as the boss, despite the fact that the real boss, Philip Rusty Rastelli, was in prison. The article also states, Mr. Gambino, however, found himself in the minority at the recent meeting of the 9-member National Commission, the officials said. His strongest supporter in the past, Stefano Magaddino of Buffalo, has died, and his other staunch ally, Joseph Cirilli, the boss in Detroit, could not attend because of illness. The other bosses, who felt that opening the books now was essential to the survival of the mafia, carried the day. But in deference to Mr. Gambino, they agreed to limit new members to 10 per family, and to select only those who had proved themselves over many years. If the 50 new members work out well, many more will be initiated in time, officials believe. The list of those waiting is thought to be a long one. Let me know your thoughts on this whole topic in the comments below. I hope you found that interesting. Thanks for watching.